So great. So thank you everybody for tuning in to episode 9 of Gear Talk. I say it every week, but it's crazy that I've gotten to 9 episodes already and I haven't run out of stuff to talk about. So really appreciate all of the feedback throughout the weeks, all the questions that you're asking on YouTube and on the Instagram and the Facebook. Please keep them coming. I schedule these around the questions that I get. So if you keep asking questions, I'll keep making them. So this week, wanted to talk about something that's been coming up a lot lately. And I think it has to do with people getting back into it and kind of remembering the way that things used to be. So I wanted to talk a little bit about flat setups. So as you probably know, there's two main ways that people skate for aggressive setups, anti-rocker and flat. Anti-rocker is when you have little wheels in the middle, big wheels on the outside, and what that does is it gives you a bigger space and a much smoother, faster area for grinds. And that's really the main motivation behind running anti-rocker. You see freestyle. Freestyle is a system that doesn't have wheels. The frame is designed for just grinding. So it would have a groove in the middle that kind of goes to a point almost. It's designed for grinds. You can't put wheels in the middle. It's very similar to anti-rocker, same concept. Outside wheels are the ones that touch and you grind on the inside. And then there's flat. So flat, as I define it, is when you have 4 wheels touching the ground at all times. And that could be all 4 wheels the same size. That could be all 4 wheels touching, but maybe the outside wheels are slightly larger than the inside wheels. There are a lot of different ways that you can have a flat setup, but for today, I'm just going to consider anything when any setup has all 4 wheels touching at the same time. So a little bit of history. When we all started skating, all that we had were flat setups, There was no anti-rocker. We didn't think about little wheels on the inside for grinding because there really wasn't a grind. Especially when you had these old Lightning TRS. So these were like the first skate that people rode, and they're flat. These are 72 mil wheels, and they were great, but they were great for skating around town. They were great for jumping stairs, riding stairs, doing gaps, maybe a little bit of half pipe, but they weren't grinding with this setup. The first time they started doing grinds was when they were skating with this skate, but they would swap out these wheels for either skateboard wheels or they wore down their wheels to a point where it was so low it was almost on the core of the wheel. And they would have little wheels, like 55 maybe. So they would have 4 55 millimeter wheels. They'd get rid of the brake, of course. This is just there for show. But if you had small wheels, you could just grind in the middle. And they were simulating what they saw in skateboarding, which was, the 50-50 grinds, the 5-0 grinds, things like that, backsides. It wasn't until they started really grinding that they started realizing that, hey, anti-rocker was a thing. And anti-rocker really changed the game for grinding. The first and the last wheels being big, the middle wheels being small, really gave a lot of options for skating any sort of obstacle that you wanted. Ledges, rails, fat rails, coping, you name it, you could skate it with an anti-rocker setup. But you lost that freedom of mobility that you would get with a flat setup. There is nothing better than skating with all 4 wheels touching at the same time. So how do you make it work, right? You can't, so where's my rail? Oh, I think I put my rail away. I had a rail. I don't have a rail anymore. But it's hard to skate this setup if you've only got, 1 1/4 finger in the middle, right? So how do you make it work? Well, what people started doing, and the first real flat setup that I skated, was simply just a slightly larger split in the middle and little wheels. So it's kind of like this one. So this is the K2 Fatty Pro. This was one of the first skates that I ever skated flat. I didn't skate them very much, but when I did, I definitely skated flat. I did probably skate flat with some of my other setups, but I was seriously into anti-rocker back in the times when these first came out. These are 455mm wheels. So they're made by Cosmo. They're so old. So Cosmo was one of the classic wheel companies from the day. They were amazing. And Cosmo made a 55mm wheel. What was interesting about Cosmo is, so 55mm, you could see that, I've got a little bit more than 2, almost 3 fingers right in the middle. What was interesting about Cosmo is this skate that I told you about. So this skate, you can kind of see it without me. Let me see, does this show? Yeah. You can kind of see there's like this little plastic piece in the middle. These frames are actually rockerable. So you can move the wheels up and down. Is it just the middle wheels? No, so the middle wheels go up and down. The outside wheels go out and in. So what you could do is you could ride these skates with some Cosmo 55mm wheels on the insides and rocker them up. And then you would get some 62mm wheels, I think, and you would rocker them down. So it was the mini flies on the inside and the flywheels on the outside. And that was called a flat rocker system. It's flat. I mean, you're still riding with all 4 wheels flat. But the interesting thing about these skates is that the rocker system allowed us to rocker the inside wheels down and rocker the outside wheels so that it created this flat skating setup, but the wheels were smaller on the inside. Remember that. It's going to come into, it's going to become important for you to remember that in the future frame discussion. So that was one of the first setups that I ever had. I definitely skated flat rocker for a while. I skated flat for a while, and that was great. I skated with a little bit of K2 Fatties. I skated 50/50 frames when they first came out. I skated those flat. When the UFS frames came out, I skated those flat. So this is what those look like. So these are a UFS 50/50 frame. This is a balance frame. It's like the 3rd generation of the 50/50 frame, the 2nd generation of the UFS 50/50 frame. And these are 56mm wheels. You can see in the inside, this has like a 3-finger split. So compared to that K2 Fatty that people were skating, which had a 55mm wheel and a 2-finger split, this is a 56mm wheel and 3-finger split. Now back in these days, a lot of skates actually came flat, and it's really hard to find a skate that comes flat nowadays. But skates came flat because I think everybody agreed that the optimal way to skate is with a flat setup. And worst case scenario, if you wanted to skate anti-rocker, all you would do is you would get that skate from the shelf, you would remove these 2 middle wheels, you put your anti-rocker wheels in the middle, and then now you've got 2 extra wheels for when these outside wheels wear down. So it wasn't a huge deal. So we skated flat. A lot of people skated anti-rocker. Skates came flat. The Solomons are a good example. So these are some Salomon STI Pros. They come with Senate wheels. These are 56mm 88A Senate wheels. This has slightly larger split. They are also rockerable. These are rockered out, which is great. It's got a little bit more than 3 fingers, so slightly larger split than the 50/50 balance frames. But you could skate these just fine. 56mm wheels, nice 3-finger split, no problem. So we skated this for a very, very, very long time. Flat was kind of the way that core skaters skated, Like anti-rocker was always this like cheating thing back in the days. And then there was a big shift when I think freestyle came out. So 50/50 came out with juice blocks, which were a block, like a molded piece of plastic that you fit in to fill the wheel well. I actually have one up here. So this is a juice block. And I don't have an open 50/50 free. Oh, I have this white one somewhere. So this is what juice blocks look like. So juice blocks go in here and they create a anti-rocker setup. So you put big wheels on the outside, anti-rocker setup, but you didn't have to worry about wheels on the inside. And that kind of, not saying that this started the revolution, but around the time that this came out is when that transition from skating flat was the norm to skating anti-rocker was the norm kind of began. So not only with this, but with freestyle frames, where you had that lack of middle wheel, people were just skating big wheels on the outside and no wheels on the inside, or they were skating freestyle without freestyle frames. They would just remove the middle wheels, and they would just skate wheels on the outside and then just, grind on the inside. So there's a big shift, and that's kind of how things have been for a very long time. It's really hard to find a pair of skates nowadays that comes with a flat setup. Maybe the only ones that I can think of that come out of the box with a flat setup are the Roman Abrate and the K2 Unnaturals or Front Streets. The others all come anti-rocker. And there's a reason for that. Anti-rocker is a great setup for grinding. I actually have these rollerblades. These are actually on a razor shift. But you can see that this is a rollerblade frame, rollerblade blank frame. This was designed to skate anti-rocker. So if I remove these middle wheels, these are little anti-rocker plastic wheels that don't even roll. But these are an anti-rocker frame. So if I were to put these wheels, these 58 millimeter wheels on the inside, you could see that they would definitely roll up, and there'd be no way to keep your wheels from sticking. Even though it has this big 4-finger split, the wheels are going to rub, and whenever a wheel rubs, you're going to get wheel bite. So wheel bite is when these wheels, so the anti-rocker wheels are much harder than the outside wheels. Anti-rocker wheels usually are around 100 A. The A is the durometer, which is the hardness of the wheel. These for normal skating are, they're 90 A. So a normal wheel is anywhere from 88 to 92 A. You'll find some wheels that get all the way up to 95 A, but those are mostly for flat setups that you're really into grinding. For the most part, you're going to find wheels on the outside that are around 88 to 92. So imagine putting a 90A wheel on the inside. As soon as this thing hits a rail or hits a ledge, you're just going to stick. So what did they do, right? So people obviously wanted to skate bigger wheels, but there was a need for flat. Well, I was actually out of the industry at the time. I stopped skating in 2005. And I just got back into it in 2016. So I missed this whole revolution of flat frame design. When I left, the balance frame and the core system frames were kind of the, not the best, but as far as I was concerned, the best designed for a flat frame. There really wasn't a lot of advances because I think at that time we were more interested in freestyle frames and we were interested in suspension frames like the physics frame. So over the years, since that freestyle movement kind of slowed down, companies started making flat frames that were designed for flat. Just like this frame is designed for anti-rocker, they were making frames that were designed for flat. Now, I don't know the dates. I'm going to mess up all the years. So, and I'm going to miss a few of the frames. And I only have a few of them here. I will mention as many as I can think of, but there are plenty of great companies out there that have moved the flat movement to the point where today it's never been easier to skate flat. So I'm going to show you a few of the different flat frames that I have in my collection. I'm going to mention a few that maybe were contributing to these designs. And then I'll talk to you about where we are today with flat and why personally I think flat is an amazing setup for you to skate. And if you haven't skated it recently, you definitely should. So first, one of my older frames for flat maybe not the older frame, is this crazy Kaiser Element. So I think this came out in 2012. I could be totally wrong because I don't know. The Kaiser Element is a really interesting frame. So it is a aluminum frame. If you look down here, you can see this is a extruded aluminum frame. And the way that an extrusion works is it's kind of like Play-Doh. Did you ever have Play-Doh when you were a kid? Or Play-Doh now, I'm not going to judge. If you put a bunch of Play-Doh in and you push that thing down and it comes out kind of like pasta, like you're making spaghetti or you're making rotini or fettuccine. I don't know any other. Those are the only pastas that I know. So what they do is they get the metal, the aluminum, and they put it into this big thing and it squirts out. And it's an extrusion. So if you look down, it's this perfect extrusion, the curves and everything. So the gold is the aluminum part, and then they go in and they machine it and they cut out the little UFS mounts. They cut out the little holes so that you can screw the frame in. This frame also has a plastic part that slaps on. There are two on each side, and then there's an H block that is reversible, I learned today, that you can convert from a anti-rocker setup to a flat setup. And if you look at this, there's a noticeable difference between this frame and like the old balance frame that I was used to when I left. I mean, not only from the length. So these Kaiser Elements are a little longer. They're probably like 275 millimeters. These are 270 millimeter. But look at that split. This thing's crazy. So how did they do it, right? How did they make this frame? Well, for starters, they kind of gave up on the whole UFS thing. So if you look at the UFS bolts on the top, you can see that there are two bolts. These bolts are 167 millimeters apart. So the center of this bolt and the center of this bolt, 167 millimeters. Typically, that becomes a problem when you're trying to make a flat frame, or any frame for that matter. Because if you look at the bottom of the frame, you can see actually the bolts are in here. You can't move these wheels out any further without rubbing on the UFS bolts. So what did Kaiser do? Well, they just said, screw it, we don't care. We're going to make the frame a little taller, right? But we're going to move it out. So the bolt can still fit in there. It's kind of hard to see. The bolt can still fit in there, but you've got so much space. These wheels are almost as close as they can get. These are 58 millimeter Conjure brand flats. And this is an amazing flat setup. I haven't skated these. These are in my collection. I missed this whole time when they were available. They feel really heavy, to be completely honest. And I've heard, the weight is an issue. The number of parts is an issue. You look at all the screws. There's a lot going on in this frame. But this design is incredible. So this is an amazing flat frame. This is the Kaiser Element. Another flat frame that I am super interested in. So this is the Kaiser, a lot of Kaiser, right? Kaiser loves these flat frames. This is the Kaiser Level 3.1 frame. This is what they call a power blading frame. These fit 4 72 millimeter wheels. 72 millimeter, can you believe that? So 4 72 millimeter, they're still UFS. So you can mount them just fine, just like any other UFS frame. They feature a nice groove, a good split. You can see the gap is fairly close. These are 72 millimeter wheels. I bet you could probably get a 74 in there, but I don't think anybody makes a 74. It's got the little nubs on the side to protect you from sole grinds. I actually skated these at a skate park the other week, and they were great. Really difficult for Royales though. So because it was so high, that angle that I was trying to get at with the Royale, I kept slipping out on my boot. A lower frame is a little easier for Royales. You don't have to get as low when you're trying to get boot down. And for me, I'm getting old and my legs aren't super strong anymore and my balance sucks. So I think that some people could skate these really well. I had a really good time skating them. I think they'd be fine for groove tricks. Royale tricks were a little difficult. Sole tricks were fine. And I would imagine most tricks are fine. It's just the Royale that was difficult. But if you look at the unique properties of this H block, so instead of just being a standard H block like the old balance frame, so if you look at the balance frame, the frame goes flat, perfectly flat across. This has what I would consider some wheel bite protection. So the frame doesn't just go flat. The frame actually extends lower than it needs to. So if you look at this side, you can see this angle that's cut into the frame wall. So the frame is still pretty low, but it gives it a lot of support. And then if you were to do, a front side or a sole grind, you're grinding on this plastic still. You're not grinding on the wheel. It's really hard to grind on the wheel. And that's really interesting. So this is like what I would consider a wheel bite protection on the H block. I don't have any, but the first frame that I've heard had wheel bite protection was the Cultic frame, the Cultic flat frame. The flat frame has a fairly deep groove. I think it fit a max of 60 millimeter wheels. I might be wrong, but it had a fairly deep groove, but it was a lower profile frame and it had really great wheel bite protection. The problem with these frames is that you really have to skate the big wheels. So if you skated these frames with a 62 millimeter wheel, you would have some problems because this H block area would probably rub. It's not really designed for that. It's designed for a really big 72 millimeter wheel. Ground Control makes a couple frames like this as well. They make the big frame, which is a 72 millimeter wheel. Similar design, similar concept. I've never skated them, so I can't speak for them. The Ground Control Mega frame is, again, a similar concept. It fits a 65 millimeter wheel. So the split is probably about the same, maybe a little bigger. The H block wheel bite protection is a little better. The groove is a little deeper, which means that it's a little easier to do Royale tricks. But the 65, flat 65 has got to feel great. So I want to get my hands on a pair of those. I haven't been able to yet, but I will soon, I hope. And I think Cultic makes some other good flat frames. I don't know the Cultic line very well, but I know that they've been really pioneers with flat setups. Really, really impressed with their lines. And I think their V2 flat frame just came out, which has interesting rockering diagonally, which means that you can come up with some really interesting setups for your flat frames. All right, so that's the Kaiser. The last one that I wanted to show before I get to the main event is the K2. So I haven't skated these yet. I haven't skated these yet, but these are the K2 unnatural frames. You can see clearly what the wheel bite protection looks like in these frames. So the wheels go in here. Do I have a 60? I don't know what size this is. Ooh, I should have a 60 up there somewhere. Here, these are 60 millimeter wheels. So 60 millimeter wheel, you could see what it looks like. So that wheel bite protection is very similar to what you saw in the level 3.1, but because the wheels are so much lower and the ride height is lower, these are probably a lot more forgiving on Royales. You can see that wheel bite protection, that will keep you'll be grinding on here, you won't be touching the wheels. I'm really interested in skating these frames. I have these ones set up. So these are my K2 front streets. I plan on setting them up this weekend and skating them this weekend, weather permitting. But you can see this wheel bite protection is incredible. Like, that's a nice big groove for skating. I don't see any issues there. If you look down the channel, the wheels are something I didn't talk about, but the profile of the wheel makes a lot of difference in flat setups as well. If they're a big square wheel like the Conjure flats, they might bite a little bit more because that angle, when you're trying to do a groove trick, might rub a little bit more with a flat wheel, square wheel, than it would with more of a profiled wheel. These don't have a super intense profile, but they're fairly intense. If you got some speed profile wheels, like I don't know if anybody makes a speed profile wheel anymore, but if they were more like a bullet, you wouldn't have any issues with wheel bite. That's probably the ideal design for a flat wheel, but that's why we test. So These are the front streets. These frames are extremely long, so I'm not really sure how these are going to feel. I got the other frames as well to test, but this setup is really interesting to me because it's another great example of wheel bite protection. I think that this is the goal for any flat designed frame. Now, this does not work for any rocker. You could skate at any rocker, of course. I mean, you could make anything work. But it's designed for skating flat. It's designed for skating with all four wheels touching. So that is the gamut of the standard flat UFS frames. Now there's one exception, and that's the Wish frame. So this is the Wish frame. So I just got these back and skated them last week. They're great frames to skate. As you can see, it is still a flat setup. So I've got all four wheels touching the ground at the same time. These are 72 millimeter on the outside, 60 millimeter on the inside. Now remember, I told you, don't forget about that TRS Cosmo flat rocker discussion. This is a flat rocker frame. So it's flat, every wheel touches at the same time. You could argue that it's a slight rocker. I'm sure that you could figure out a different wheel that would come up with a different rocker. I'm going to call it flat. I think all four wheels touching at the same time, it's pretty flat. And if it's rocker, as soon as you wear these down, they're going to be flat anyway. So anyway, we can argue all you want, but for most people, this is a flat style frame. What's interesting about it is that the middle wheels are smaller. Now, why would anybody do the middle wheels smaller? Well, if you look at the gap between wheels 3 and 4, you see how close it is. Now, what other frame, here's a pop quiz, what other frame had a gap this close? It was the Kaiser Element. So the Kaiser Element has a really close gap. Now, why can't a Kaiser Element, what's wrong with the Kaiser Element? Well, it is UFS, but it's also tall. And the problem with being tall is it's going to make a 58 millimeter wheel feel like kind of a 61 millimeter wheel, 62 millimeter wheel. And that is because of the UFS mount. You can see how close that UFS mount is. So how did Wish get around it? Well, they put the same size wheels, give or take, in the middle, but they have a big wheel on the outside. So they rockered this one down and it rides flat. So it's just smart math. If you look at this Kaiser Element, if you put a 72 mil wheel, you could see there's that much space on the bottom of the front and the back wheel. You could, if you rockered these up, or if you left these here and you rockered these down, put a bigger wheel on the outside, you could ride these flat just like the Wish frame. Now you can't rocker these frames, so this is a pretend world that I'm living in. But that is how they accomplished this amazing split. And that is why I think the Wish frame is an amazing frame. Not only does it have a flat setup, but it's got this huge groove. I mean, I can't even fit my hand. I can fit my whole hand in there. It's not wheel bite protection. These are like NA rockers. These are like juice blocks. So compare this to the Fitty Fitty balance frame. They're like juice blocks. It's like the same feeling. So you're skating on this frame material on the inside. The only time that you would get wheel bite is if you missed and if you got up too far on the wheels. But even then, the frame is angled at a point where it's nice and clean, so it's really hard to miss. These are an amazing frame. Some problems with this frame, for me personally, they feel a little bit taller than I'm used to, and I'm not a great skater, so when I try to do topside tricks, I struggle a little bit with these frames trying to get boot down. The reason is if you're coming up doing topside, if a topside for a flat frame, if a topside for a smaller frame is like this, if this is a taller, if there's more distance between the sole of the boot and the wheels, then on other frames you got to get a little lower so that this angle compensates so that you're not rolling on the ledge. I had a really hard time when I was skating these last to get down low enough so that I wasn't rolling on the ledge. It still felt fine, but I slipped out a little bit. I think that if you are focused on doing topside tricks and trying to learn topside tricks like I am, maybe a smaller profile frame would be smarter. obviously a 50-50 balance frame would work great, but there are other low profile frames out there. And the only other problem with the Wish frames is that they're a little expensive, and you've got to get specialty wheels. You can't just ride, 4 60 millimeter wheels or whatever and rotate them around so that they all kind of wear evenly. You've got 2 different size wheels. That can be hard to find, can be expensive. You got to make sure that your wheels are fairly fresh. So it's definitely more of a niche frame, but it is an awesome frame. And if you have the means to get one and get the wheels and get some good bearings, I highly recommend skating them. I think they're an amazing setup for anybody who wants to try flat and really just wants to try the best technology that we have. I own a frame company, for crying out loud, and I highly recommend the Wish frames. I think that they're an amazing setup. One more thing. Now, I don't want to say that this is it. There are other flat frames. I have to be clear. There are other flat frames out there that I haven't skated. There's the Kaiser Slimlines that I hear are really great. There are probably a ton. There's the rollerblade, what are they called? The shift frames, switch frames. There are a ton of frames out there that I haven't skated. This is what I have in my personal collection that I have been able to skate, or the frames that I know about. The only other frame that I would talk about, and it doesn't really count, but it kind of counts, is my beloved USD Aeon. So this USD Aeon, what a great frame. It's not UFS. So this USD Aeon is a single piece mold. It is a boot frame. Everything is a single piece, so you can't replace these frames. So it doesn't count. But it is awesome. And if all that you're interested in is getting a single setup, and you don't care about swapping out frames for big wheels, and you don't care about swapping out frames for different styles, the USD Aeon is a great skate for aggressive. It's a great skate overall. If you look at the inside, a lot of hints from our old friend, the Kaiser Element. I mean, that split is very similar. You can see that groove, very similar. Doesn't go down as low as this one. This added the wheel bite protection. This frame probably came out, I don't know, somebody's gonna have to correct me, but this frame probably came out before the wheel bite protection revolution started with the Caltic frame, with the K2 frame. Definitely this came out before the Wish frame. But these Aeons came out after. These are like 2015, I think they came out. Gives you a little bit of wheel bite protection. This groove, as soon as I grind it a little further down, this groove will help me protect. I have never gotten wheel bite on these, and these are some Volo 88A 58 millimeter wheels. They are not hard, but I've never had wheel bite because this frame is just designed perfectly. The split is perfect, the wheel bite protection is perfect, the groove is perfect. The only problem is that it's not UFS. Now, somebody could make this frame, like this Kaiser Element frame. They could copy this frame 100% and just make it taller. And I bet you it would sell pretty well. The UFS bolts are the problem. And again, I have to point out that UFS bolt is right where this wheel is. If that UFS bolt was pushed out a little bit, we wouldn't have this problem. We could make this we could make this USD Aeon frame, a UFS frame. But for now, this is what we got. If you want to skate, an amazing flat setup, either you go with the Wish frames or you go with the USD Aeons. Me personally, I really like my Wish frames. I really like my 50-50 frames. There's, of course I own the company, so a little bias there, but there's something about just having a tighter groove and even symmetrical wheels that I really like. I've been experimenting with wheels to try to find out the best profile for these wheels. I think that if I made a 58 or a 59 millimeter speed profile wheel, like if these faster wheels, like these were the K2 wheels. So these wheels were on this, they're a little pointier. I don't know. I'm testing them out. I really like this frame for anti-rocker. I think that it could work well for flat. But if you're just getting started with flat, highly recommend the Wish frame. I think the ground control Megas are a great option. I haven't skated them, but I've heard really good things. And yeah, maybe the Kaiser Slimlines. Those are the 3 frames that I probably recommend. Again, I haven't skated the other two. I've just skated the Wish frames, which by far are my favorite. It's worth trying. I think a flat setup is a really great feeling. And, if you've skated anti-rocker for a long time, give flat a try. All right. That was a long one. I'm not sweating too much, at least, though. James, 2015, thank you, Aeons. I thought it came out right before I came back. So I remember when I came back, they just came out. And I was like, oh, but I want UFS because I'm the whole frame guy thing. And I didn't like the Aeons because of that. But totally understand now why they're so awesome. Hey, Alvaro. Powerside Imperial Evo 80s. And the wheels bend a lot. So if you're skating the stock wheels, you might have that problem. For 80 millimeter wheels, I have gone with... So this is a UFS frame. This would not fit your skate, but I've gone with the Rollerblade Hydrogen wheels. These have gone through mud, so they're a little dirty. Rollerblade Hydrogen wheels, and people in the chat, please correct me if you have any feedback, but these have been some really great wheels, 80 millimeter wheels for the price. I want to say you can get a set of 8 for like $60, something like that. They are long lasting. I still have, the mold lines in them. I highly recommend the Rollerblade Hydrogen wheels. I skate them on my Trimax. These are Rollerblade Hydrogen wheels. Again, they're great wheels. I don't know what wheels came with your skates or what wheels you're skating now, but Rollerblade Hydrogen is a great brand that you can get behind for not a lot of money. Of course, if you want to spend a little bit more money, get some undercover wheels. Those are probably my favorite wheels. If I had money to burn and I wanted the best of the best, I would get some I would get some undercover 80 millimeter wheels. Otherwise, I would just get some Rollerblade Hydrogen wheels. 80 millimeter are great. I think that will fix your problem. Another thing, if they feel like they're bending, make sure that all of your hardware is secure. Make sure that the bearings are in good condition, and make sure that there's a bearing spacer inside the bearings. So you need the bearing spacer, bearing spacer, and bearing inside each wheel. If you don't have that, it's going to bend a little bit. And then just make sure that the spacers are good on your frames and that you tighten those axles down. You shouldn't have any problems after that. The wheels should not bend. That's a really weird situation. So check your hardware, make sure that that's okay, and then go and get some new wheels. I, again, recommend the Rollerblade Hydrogen 80 millimeter wheels. I think they're great, and they're at a great price. And they come in a cool color. Who doesn't like red? All right. Symmetric frames. God damn it. RDG, thank you. Yeah, Symmetric frames are amazing. I didn't mention them because I don't have a pair. I've never skated a pair. I've never seen a pair in person. Take that back. I've seen a pair at Oak City Skate Shop, but I never skated them. Symmetric frames. So those are made by the guys over at Adapt. They're handmade, CNC'd out of a single piece of plastic. They are great frames, and they're great for flat. They come flat 62, is it? I think it's 62. And then I think if you get the Symmetrics, if you get the Adapt sole plates for the Symmetrics V4, it's kind of confusing, but you can get special sole plates that have grooves on the inside so that you can ride flat 65. I've never skated them though, so I can't really speak for them, and they're really rare out here. Very few people have. I've never seen them in the wild, but I hear they're really great frames. So thank you for bringing those up. I wish that I would have brought it up during my chat. Travis, hey, Rollerblade Twister Pros, and you like doing slides, like magic slides and parallel slides, I assume. The Twister Pros, I think, come with 110 millimeter wheels, so I'm going to assume that those are the slides that you're talking about. Any skate you could upgrade to for 150. You know, it really depends on what you want to skate. Like, I think the Twister Pros are a pretty good skate. I know the boot is really solid, and people rave about the frames. I don't know that you really need to upgrade that much, especially for 150 bucks. You're probably better off spending that money and getting some new wheels. Maybe some undercover wheels would be good for slides, especially. I love the mushroom blading wheels. This is my slide setup. So these are some mushroom bleeding undercover wheels. They're 100 millimeter. Undercover makes 110 as well. I don't have any of them, but the Dustin Werbeski wheels are really good for that. These are 85A, I believe, and they work great for slides. I think any good quality wheel, $10 a wheel or so, would be great for slides. I'm also assuming that you're skating a tri-skate. I don't know if you have 80 millimeter wheels or 110s, but if you're skating a tri-skate, getting some, really nice 110 millimeter wheels, some nice bearings, that's probably your best upgrade. I would save your money. I wouldn't get a new boot yet. If you want to get a new boot, I don't even know where to go for urban or slalom. I mean, the Power Slide Next looks great. I haven't skated them myself yet, so I haven't tried them. The Rollerblade Twister is a great skate, but you already have that. I've heard mixed reviews on the K2 Trio. I've never skated them, so I can't speak for it, but I like the look of the frames. And they're 3x110 or 3x100, which is a great size. I think it's really hard to say. I wouldn't go throwing out my boots yet. I think the best upgrade for you right now would be bearings and wheels. 3x110 is a great setup, and I don't think that you could get much better than that. Maybe look into getting like some carbon, like some Power Slide Evos or whatever those things are called. But I mean, I think at the level that you're at, I don't think you're going to tell that much of a difference. I couldn't tell that much of a difference, so I don't know that it's worth spending your money. All right, I'm going back through the chat, and there's a lot going on. I'm sorry if I didn't get to everybody. Two Qs, my boy in Arizona. Wheels. So the wheels that I recommend for the 50-50 frames, it depends, as everything depends. I know that you skate anti-rocker. I'm assuming that you're going to try skating the juice blocks, which is great. I think you will do really great with the juice blocks. I think you'll really like them. They're a really smooth grind. The best wheels for those, I mean, you're going to want to skate something that's fairly big on the outside. It fits a max of 58, but technically you could fit a 60 in there. I skate them with the 60s. Do I have my anti-rockers? What did I do with? Oh, the 60s are in the wish frames. I skate them with the 60s on the outside, and they're great. One thing to keep in mind with juice blocks is if you're skating over like a bank, where transition isn't a problem. Like if you drop in, you're not in any problem. But if you're skating over a bank like this, as soon as the frame goes over the bank, if your wheels aren't tall enough and they rub, the juice blocks might rub on the bank, and you'll get a little bit of a squirt. It's just more uncomfortable than anything else. Your wheels will catch you and you won't fall much, but if you're used to that anti-rocker wheel spinning a little bit, you won't get that with juice blocks. Best way to get around that, I always hop over the bank edges, but get yourself some 60 millimeter wheels and those would be good. Brands that I recommend, I mean, 58 to 60 millimeter is kind of the sweet spot. I like the Apex wheels. I don't know that I have any. Are these the 56s? So these are the 59s. Apex, they're 94A. They're a great wheel. I don't have any issues with them. People skate them and they like them. It's a 59. The what is it? These are the old Nick Lomax wheels. These were 60 millimeter. They're probably like 59 now. They were really slow, and I really like those. Oh, probably the best ones that I would recommend, I don't have them here, I just let them out, is the Dead wheels. Dead are poured at the same place that these undercover Nick Lomax wheels are poured. They're a great wheel. Get the 92s. I think the 92s are better for the style of skating that you do than the 88s, especially in a hot place like Arizona where it's going to be, you're going to want a harder wheel. You don't want a soft wheel because you'll definitely feel like that urethane is going to wear pretty quickly in the hot sun. So Dead wheels are great. Other brands. I like the Conjures. They're really hard though. I don't think that these are a good anti-rocker wheel. Oh, that makes a sound. I don't think these are a good anti-rocker wheel. They're more designed for flat. That's why they're called the flats. But, great wheel. What else? I really liked those Volo. It's funny, but the stock Volo wheels, the 58 millimeter 88As, they lasted a long time. I think if you're skating anti-rocker, it's really hard to get picky with wheels. You're not really going to feel it. If you're skating flat, especially with balance frames, you don't want anything more than like a 56. And in that case, Pickenster's slim. You're going to have to stick with an Apex 56. You can get some Eulogies. Do I have those over here? So these are the Abdeel Kohlberg. These are 55 millimeter Abdeel wheels. I've heard really good things about them. Clearly haven't skated them, but I know that they're really cheap. You can get them for like $30 for a set of 4. So that might be a really good option. You can get these. They make all different sizes as well. So if you get Eulogies, you can get them at 57s, 58s. I think they make a 59 as well. If you want to skate flat though, these 55s are pretty cool. Yeah, it's really hard to recommend a wheel for anti-rocker. If you're skating flat, again, it's even more limited. I usually stick with the brands that I know. Dead, Undercover, Eulogy. Those are kind of the ones that I stick to. I know that they're going to produce a good wheel. So, hope that helped. Ali Star Growly. Airwalk aggressive skates on eBay. You want to know what's funny? I have a pair. Look at these beauties. So these are missing a wheel. Hey, look at that bullet profile. Look at these wheels. Never noticed that. These are rink rats. These are Envy rink rats. They're 59 74A. 74A. Look at that profile. Oh my God. Anyway, so these are the Airwalk skates. These are probably the ones that you were talking about. Anyway, very interesting history with this skate. This shell is the shell that Them Skates uses for the Them 908. So if you look at it, you can see the resemblance. That lacing system, very similar. That's really where it ends though. The lacing system is the same. It's the same shell, but you can see that they added, this company added some little ridges over here. They added these, I think the shell has these little sparkle things, and maybe the company added this. You can see that Them filled it all in. So it's a much more polished look on the Them skate. They got rid of the things. They got a nice toe up there. These Airwalk skates, I paid $25 for them at a Play It Again Sports. They are crap. Absolute crap. The liner just looks horrible. The frames are not UFS. I don't know what they come with, but they probably don't come with anything good for wheels. I'm sure they don't come with these crazy wheels, but these skates aren't designed for skating. If you look at the Royale groove, I mean, if you were watching a couple weeks ago, I talked about Royale angles. Typically, you want the angle to be like this. This groove is way over here. It would be a crazy skate to try to Royale with. I mean, you would slip off. This is Like a Volo groove is like here. This is way over here. So do not recommend. But it's interesting to look at. You know, I don't know if there's a market for aggressive anymore, especially a market that a company would want to market with the Airwalk brand. But I don't think these sell very well. They're probably in the big box stores as a aggressive skate, but I definitely don't recommend them. It's save your money. It's not worth the $25 that I paid for them, except for the laughs. The laughs are always worth the $25. Medium wheels. Oh, those were the best. Scott, absolutely agree. So Shane was amazing at marketing, and he had the most amazing team. I mean, those were the glory days, in my opinion, of skate teams. The teams were big. You know, you had the medium team that was just incredible. Senate team was even incredible at the time. Yeah, I mean, I don't think the wheels were that good, to be honest. I don't think I ever skated them really. Any of those hyper wheels, you know, the Bravo distribution wheels, the Senate wheels, the medium wheels, I don't know that they were that great. I was very particular to Cosmo wheels back in those days. And I don't know what else there was. I think Lebeda poured some wheels, so I'm not sure who they poured, maybe Realm, and I don't know who else there was back there. I can't remember any of the old Heavy. That was a wheel company, I think. But yeah, I was kind of a Cosmo snob, so I didn't really skate many of the other wheels back then. But I have fond memories of Medium. They were an amazing company. The marketing was just great. And I think they did a really good job of promoting rollerblading and making it look fun. So definitely very nostalgic for Medium. All right. Urban Street 24. Not a gear question, but talking about getting sponsored. It's a really difficult question to answer. So there are a few levels of sponsorship that people usually get. Probably the most attainable level is the shop sponsorship. You know, if you have a local skate shop, you go out and skate and you represent that shop. And the shop gives you product, and you go and skate the product, and you tell people how much you like the product. I mean, that's a good way of getting exposure for the shop. You wear the shop t-shirts, you go to the shop events, and you promote the shop. You know, it's a great partnership. You get free stuff and they get good exposure. That's hard to do if you aren't really good friends with the shop. You know, if you have a local shop, that's fine, but there's a handful of local shops left. So that's a really difficult place to be. The second level, I guess, would be like a company flow skater, which is when, you know, the company sees something in you and wants to send you some product. Lots of different companies do that for various reasons. It could be geography, you know, if you're a really good skater and, for example, say that USD wants to sell more skates in your region and they want to get exposure either from you because you're really popular on Instagram or from you because you're popular in your neighborhood and your area and you do really well at the local competitions and events. They might flow you some skates so that you can skate their skates. And then people ask, oh, that guy's really good. What skates is he on? And they say, oh, I skate USD, of course. So that's a flow system. That's usually pretty rare as well. Maybe a little more attainable than a shop flow because of the geography. I know a bunch of people who are on flow for different companies. The best way to get flow from a company is just do as much as you can to get exposure and skate and do something unique. You know, companies don't want the same person that does the same two top sole on the same rail all the time. Doesn't matter how crazy the tricks are. It's all about the attitude. It's all about the exposure. It's all about the vibe that you're putting out there, and if that vibe matches what the company wants to portray. If you're, very, like if you think of some of the older companies out there from the days, you've got a 4x4, with Brian Shima and John Elliott and Chris Haffey style, versus a supercomputer robot, which I know is a completely different era, but they're more of a competition style, like maybe not more clean cut, but like a different vibe altogether. You've got to fit in with the brand that you're trying to get sponsored with. And you got to put it in the perspective of the brand. What are they getting out of giving you stuff? They want exposure. They want people to buy more product, and they want people to skate more, so that if there are more skaters out there, there will be more people buying product, and that's the way that companies stay in business. The third and final one is the core sponsored riders like Eugen Ennen or Joe Atkinson or like Montre Livingston, like the real, like the core sponsored skaters who represent the companies, who have the pro model skates. And even if they don't have the pro model skates, they have the skates and they are in the ads and they're represented by the companies. That's really the upper echelon of sponsorship. It's very rare. I don't think that really happens very often. I could probably, there's probably less than 20 skaters out there that actually are on that level, just because the industry is so small now. A lot of companies do like an ambassador program. K2 does an ambassador program where they have a lot of people who represent their company, but they don't necessarily have them as like a pro skate sort of thing. I think that's a very bygone era. Now it's more about, just going out there and skate. You got to ask yourself why you would want to be sponsored. It's a lot of work. You got to get out there and you got to do edits and you got to post on Instagram and you got to prove to the company that the money that they're investing in you through product, through flying you to competitions, through, entering you in events, stuff like that, is working for them. They're getting something out of it. And the best way for you to do that, even if you're not sponsored, is just go out there, pick a product that you like, pick a company that you like, skate that company's product and tag them on Instagram and make sure that they notice you. And just keep doing it. And as you progress, as you get out there more, as you show them that you are making a positive impact to skating and a positive impact to their brand, maybe they'll notice and maybe they'll send you some t-shirts and stuff. All right. I'm at an hour, so I'm going to call it pretty soon. Jeff, I talk about big wheels every now and then, so please see if you can definitely look at the old Gear Talk episodes. You could do a search on YouTube for Gear Talk Big Wheels, and you'll probably find a bunch of my videos that address it. So big wheels, I absolutely love skating big wheels. I'm an aggressive skater at heart. I'm a hockey player at heart, but I'm an aggressive skater. I grew up skating ledges and rails, and I love rollerblading at the skate park. But I turned 42 this summer, and I don't recover quite as easily as I used to, and I don't bend quite as limberly as I used to. So I still love skating, but I got to do something a little less high impact. And big wheel has been it for me. So anything big wheel, I usually consider big wheels starting at around 72. You could get these level 3.1 frames, the Kaiser level 3.1. These are 72 millimeter wheels. You could bring these to the skate park. They're UFS, put them on your UFS skates and have a blast. They're so fun. You go so fast and airs are effortless. It's a great feeling. Still have room to grind. This is a really good mix if you just want to go really fast to the skate park. One more size up, you've got 80 millimeter wheels. 80 millimeter wheels, can't speak. These are 80 millimeter wheels on a Kaiser Aero. These are also UFS. These are designed for a little bit of grinds. This is a plastic sidewall. So you could do sole grinds, and I guess you could do top sides if you were good. but there's no groove. You know, this is a 243 millimeter frame, 80 millimeters, 80 millimeter wheels, so it's 80, 80, 80. That's 240. You need 1 mil difference in the middle. 243. That's as short as it can get. It's a lot of fun to skate. It's a little short for me, but 80 millimeters are a lot more fun to skate than 72 millimeters. The problem is you're not going to have enough room for grinds. So if you want to do grinds, 72 millimeters is as big as I would get. A little bit higher. So these are 100 millimeter wheels. These are the Wizard NR100s. This is a 4x100 frame. It's also UFS. These wheels are amazing to skate. They have a great coast. You skate and you just kind of flow, which is an amazing feeling. I bring these to the skate park. I bring these to the office park. I bring these everywhere. They are the most fun skates for just exploring your area. I really like them. Stair rides are great. A little bit of airs are great. Slides are great, you know, doing parallel slides and stuff. These are a really great setup for me for skating big wheels, 4x big wheels. They're a little long though, so as soon as you get to big wheels, you've got that really long footprint. These are probably 305 mil or so, but you've got, you know, a big wheel that sticks out. So I clip my feet sometimes, like if you do crossovers. Says this wheel sticks out so far in the front. I do crossovers and I clip my feet a little bit. That's frustrating. So they're great for overall urban skating, but you got to be mindful of doing crossovers and clipping your feet. A little bigger. So these are 110s. So these are the Kaiser Trimax 3x110s. They are a 255 wheelbase, which means that even with a size 10.5 skate, the wheels stick out a little bit, but not much. 110 millimeter wheels. That means that the faster you can skate, the longer you'll coast. If you keep doing transitions and pumping, you will just accumulate this crazy speed. And it is an amazing feeling. This is probably my favorite skate for doing just urban skating. 3x110 is a really great combination size-wise. It's probably the best combination I've found for doing big wheel skating that's urban. 110 millimeter is a great size for coasting. You still have that short wheelbase, so you're able to skate quickly, do crossovers, skate backwards, do all the things that you like to do on your normal aggressive skates or normal, you know, inline skates. But you've got these huge wheels, so you can coast a lot longer. And then finally, these are my trail skates. So these are the Power Slide Swell road skates. These are the road frames. These are 311 mil? No, longer than that. They're 12 and a half inches from wheel 1 to 3. They're really long. But they feel amazing when you're skating trails. So the length will add more stability. So when I'm skating at higher speeds, you know, I get up to like 20 miles an hour when I'm skating these things. If you're skating really fast, you want as much stability as possible. You don't want any sort of wiggles because then you could, you know, start swerving and fall out. Longer is better. Forces you to do longer strides. Forces you to push with your heels. It's all about the form with these skates. 125 millimeters are an amazing size for skating trails. They will cut. I mean, I skate probably 10 miles with my normal trail between 8 and 10 miles. When I switched from 110s to 125s, I shaved off about a minute from my time, which is a huge deal because I don't skate that well to begin with. If just changing the size of the wheel and not changing my technique at all can shave off a minute from your time, that means that I must be booking. So 125s are what I recommend for trail skates. 110s if you're doing urban and you just want to skate around. 100s if you just want to have fun, but be mindful that the frame length might be a little long. 80s are a lot of fun for just skating around the neighborhood, and 72s are the biggest that I would ever go for a skate park. All right, is that all the things? Oh, did I crash? Shoot. Darn it. It's doing so good, too. You know what happened? My my phone got to a low power mode, and it said you're almost out of battery. So I knew that I had only an hour of video left, but I did what I could. That's funny that the audio is still working. Thank you. Cultic flat frames. I mentioned this a little bit ago. Please, when I post this full thing, it's the first segment that I talk about. I think it's like 30 minutes, so you can skip around if you like. I do talk a little bit about the flat frames. I've never skated them. I give Cultic credit for starting the wheel bite. Where's a good wheel bite frame? The wheel bite protection revolution. Cultic's frame was probably the first that offered this wheel bite. This is the K2 Unnatural frame. It might be a more refined design. The new Cultic V3, V2, the new Cultic V2 flat frame has a slightly different groove. It's a really interesting frame. I have never skated them. I've never seen them in the wild. I've seen them at Oak City, but I don't have much opportunity to skate them. I need to try them someday just to see what they're like, but I don't have a pair, so I can't really speak for how good they are. I do know that people rave about them, especially for rails. I don't know that they're super great for ledges. That groove, instead of being this shallow groove, is a fairly deep groove, kind of like a rail groove, so it's probably really great for jumping on handrails. But I could see that groove being a little limiting for ledges. But again, I've never skated them, so I don't want to speculate. All right, thank you all so much for showing up. Another hour of Gear Talk is under wraps with a few minutes of dead air. I'm going to be doing this again in 2 weeks, so if you have any questions that I can address, I might not know the answers. I say this all the time, but I might not know. With these flat frames, I didn't know all of the examples of the wheel bite protection. I wanted to learn. So if there's a question that you have, I might have that same question, and chances are other people might have that question. Please let me know. Leave it in the comments. Send me a message on Facebook or Instagram. I want to cover as many topics as I can. I cut them up into little snippets so that people can find them on YouTube, so that when I have a question, I can answer it once, and then I can point people to that question so that I can answer it again over and over and over again on YouTube instead of typing it out every time. So trying to make skating a lot more educated, trying to let people think about what they're skating instead of just buying the skates and putting them on their feet and giving up because they're not right for them. I want people to love their skates and love the equipment that they ride, and have a personal attachment with the equipment and opinions. I think that skating is amazing, and there's a lot of great options out there. There's a lot of amazing companies out there doing some really progressive technology, and I love experimenting and learning. So thanks again for watching. Really appreciate it. Have a great evening.